Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, and welcome to Kumi Now. Thank you for joining us for this latest online gathering as we talk about the Kairos document. We're glad that you were able to join us this week. My name is Carla Brown. I'm a Kumi volunteer joining you from Winnipeg, Canada on Treaty 1 territory, ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Before we go any further, I would like to remind you that our webinar is being broadcast live on Facebook and will be posted to YouTube. If you want to make sure that your photo does not accidentally appear online, please turn off your camera. We would also greatly appreciate if you could share one of the links that are being put in the chat so that others may join this meeting in progress. As usual, if you have an idea or a project that you would like to share for up to 5 minutes in a future meeting, please email us at kumi@kuminow.com. Now it's time for the weekly activism survey. We will now launch the poll. Please note that there are 3 questions, so you may need to scroll down for the third. So the poll has appeared on screen there, 3 questions, and I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay, I see some answers flooding in. Thank you for everyone who was able to take action this last week, and thank you in advance for those who will take action on this coming week. So the answer to question number 2, in what year did theologians in South Africa issue the first Kairos document, is the final answer, 1985. The answer to question number 3, Rifat Ode Kassis is the coordinator of the Kairos Palestine document, was the founder of the Palestinian chapter of what international rights organization? And the correct answer to that is the first one, Defense for Children International. We hope that you will find this session today interesting and informative. I would like to start by having our speakers for today introduce themselves. So first we'll have Omar. Please introduce yourself.
Hello from Jerusalem. My name is Nora Carmi, and I will be briefly with you presenting an update from the ground, the latest news from Palestine and Israel.
Thank you. And Nora, can you please introduce yourself? Nora is our special guest today. Nora, you're still muted. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nora Carmi from Jerusalem. It's good to see so many faces I know around. I am a retired person who has worked for over 40 years for peace and justice, not only in Palestine, but all around the world. So I'm a Sabiler. I worked for Sabil, and I'm a Kairos person, but I'm retired from both. But it is not a surprise that Sabil is really talking today about the document at a time when things are so bad in our country, when it's the week for solidarity with the Palestinians. We are supporting women who have been violated so much. And for Israel, it's Hanukkah. So thank you, Sabil, and Kumi Now for doing it today.
Thank you, Nora. We're looking forward to hearing more from you. Omar, please go ahead and give us the update from the ground.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. So unfortunately, again, we're back to square one. Israel has announced that for 2 weeks at least, the airport is closed. Only Israeli citizens are allowed to come back to Israel or to fly from Israel. People, expatriates or tourists or pilgrims who are already in the country, they're allowed to fly back to their country. There are some rumors now or discussions that the airport might close for 100 days. Nobody knows. These are only rumors that we have heard leaked by the Israeli media. In Palestine, many schools, because where they are located, are under continuous attacks from settlers and the Israeli army in the West Bank. However, this school, it's close to Nablus in Al-Lubba. The girls' school is called Al-Sharqiyya School. They have, the school has announced not a single day that has passed by this year that there hasn't been an attack by either Israeli settlers or the Israeli army, either by breaking into the school, firing tear gas, live ammunition, or rubber bullets. So in a way, there is a movement now in Palestine focusing on this school, the school in Nablus, in a way to raise awareness, in a way to try to put an end to these attacks on the school. In the picture previously, you saw the Palestinian Prime Minister launching this campaign. Home demolitions continue to be a reality in Palestine and Israel. 2020 marked the highest year home demolitions took place since the occupation of the West Bank in 1967. This year, already, it is 21% more homes have been demolished than last year, with around 28% more of the Palestinians becoming displaced because of the home demolitions. These are scary news and statistics. East Jerusalem by itself, since the beginning of the year, 88 houses have been demolished. So this continues to be a sad reality for us as Palestinians. It seems Palestinian prisoners who are arrested are being arrested by the Israeli army without being charged under administrative detention. They need to go for over 100 or 110 days on a hunger strike before being released. Hisham Abu Hawash, he is from Hebron. He's 39 years old. Today marks 106 days of hunger strike. He's been arrested since last year. Israel has not accused him of anything or have shown any evidence against him. So please hold him in your prayers as he continues to non-violently protest unjust policies of the Israeli army. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Let's just take a moment to honor the suffering expressed in this news. So we'll now turn to our main issue of the week, which is the Kairos document, and our special guest, Nora Carmi, the retired project manager from Kairos Palestine. As she speaks, if you think of a question you'd like to ask, please type it in the chat and we'll have a question and answer period at the end, and I'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible. So Nora, please take it away with your presentation.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. I know that many of you know the document, have endorsed it, supported it, and have been really working very hard all over to make the Kairos document as meaningful as it has been for the past 11 years. But how did it start? And what does this word Kairos mean? Actually, In Greek, it is Kairos and not Kairos, but it has become westernized into Kairos. And the definition of the word in Greek is the right time. It is a time when the conditions to accomplish any critical action are opportune and present. So that is really the meaning, opposed to chronos, which is also time. And chronos is used when we speak about every year, the month, the dates, and so on. But Kairos is much deeper, is much more spiritual in a sense. And even in the Bible, we have several places where you hear about Kairos or Kairos. And I'll just mention a few because I don't want to go into all that. In Mark 14:15, it says it is a time that requires a conversion from people. So it's not only a time where you hear, but it's a time where we need to have something happening, okay? And in the South African Kairos document that came out in 1985, they said this is the Kairos moment of grace and opportunity. It is the favorable time in which God issues a challenge to decisive actions. So this document that became the Kairos Palestine document is not the first that appeared. And there are movements all over the world, in fact, in Canada also, that are called Kairos, but they don't have much to do with the document itself. So how did it all start? And why did the Palestinians have a document called the Kairos Palestine document? Okay, you know that because of the situation that Omar spoke so well about in our country, we have, as groups of Christians who are from the land of the Holy One, always connected with our brothers and sisters all around the world and ask them to live their faith, because this is where it all started. The message of Christianity started from this land, and we did not import it. In fact, we exported it to all of you. But because of the love that we have learned from Jesus Christ, which is at the basis of our faith, we called upon groups of people and the World Council of Churches to have conferences to discuss what is it that we can do. The situation has been going on for so long. And as I said before, I mean, it's the week of solidarity. It's the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinians. But this has been going on since 1947. And back in 2007, church leaders, Christian organizations, people, mass people, all met with the World Council of Churches and other National Council of Churches in Jordan. And at that time, we started discussing what it is that we can do. I was a staff member at Sabeel then, and I attended on behalf of Sabeel. And we all looked at what were the imperatives that we were looking at and what we could do. And I don't know where Ryan is, but Ryan is supposed to put for you the link to the Amman call. Ryan, I don't see you, but he will do it, I'm sure. Okay. So then after that meeting, everybody who came from Palestine went back, and it was decided that a group of theologians. There it is, the Amman Call. A group of theologians, lay people, clergy, from as ecumenical as possible, would start writing what came to be known as a moment of truth. A moment of truth. A moment in which we could see God calling us and asking us to react. Though I was a member of Sabil, I am not one of the writers. There were 15 people, and as Karen pointed out, Rifat Assis was one of the people who was working with the World Council of Churches at that time, and he really was the motor behind it all. But we had wonderful people, and when you look at the list, you will find all the names. What for me is important is that there were 3 women among those 15 people who were writing, okay? And one of them was from Sabil. One of them was an Orthodox woman. And the third was a young woman from Bethlehem. Today is part of the municipality of Bethlehem. So this came out and it was launched on Human Rights Day in 2009 in Bethlehem. And it was called A Moment of Truth, a word of faith, hope, and love from the heart of the Palestinian suffering. And I will repeat that because this is very important. A moment of truth, a word of faith, hope, and love from the heart of the Palestinian suffering. So the people who are speaking about it were speaking out of their suffering. And I'm saying that because in the years that followed, when we were meeting with people from all over the world, I also met with Jews from all over the world. And I remember a group telling me, there's something missing in your document. And I said, what is it? And they said, you're not speaking about our suffering. And I said, please read the title. It is speaking about the suffering of the Palestinians. When you fall down and you break a hand or a leg, you say, ouch. At that moment, you are thinking of your own suffering, not about the suffering of others. Plus, the document starts by stating facts as they are. And the facts are that the Palestinian people, as you all know, all throughout the years until today, have been living under a military rule, oppression, occupation, name it all, with all the difficulties that we have. And so we had to speak about it, but the way we spoke about it, and I don't know how many people have read it, but if you have not read it, it's the first thing you really have to do. It's not big, it's about 18 pages in English, but it has been translated into 22 languages all over the world. And so it means that people were interested. When it was launched in Bethlehem, we had people from lots of places, but we had the testimony of a Jew and the witness of a Muslim who had read the document and who were really trying to encourage this to happen. My reaction then, as a Sabil staff member, was, what is this going to do? Is this another document? Are we going to put it on the shelf and forget all about it? I humbly say that after 11 years, it is not only a document, it has become a living word of God translated into action for justice and peace, not only for the Palestinians, but for the people of the land. And out of that, as it developed, it became a global movement for justice. For those who have not read the document, let me just very briefly say, okay, certain points that you really need to look at. After the summary of conditions in Palestine, there is theologically the word of God. What do you think it is? It's a living word. And so we cannot stick fundamentally reading our Bible in one certain way as it was then. It's a living word for every person in every time, at all times, and even today. And I can see that we have Westerners with us. We have people from the country. I don't see any people from the South, but the South should be included because this is also where there is a lot of injustice. We also spoke about love all the time, okay? And I would advise those who have not read it, please go and read it. Because as my South African friends have told me, what you have done in this document, you Palestinians, you brought out what is so important, which is love, and love that can change the world, and love that never fails. Who is from South Africa? Stian, okay, you're most welcome, Stian. Most welcome, okay. So, and then what we looked at was that it did not only speak to our own local Palestinians to give them the hope to go on, but it also spoke to the local Muslims and Jews in the countries, okay? So we gave a picture of who the Muslims were in this part of the world, how they were sometimes mistreated, mispainted by the Western world. And we also spoke with the Jews, our brothers and sisters, with whom we could share the land. And again, I know that some of you were at the meeting with the Australians and you heard all about it today. It is very important to know, as I said, the Kairos is a chance for change and transformation. Change and transformation. Are we ready for that? To look into our own hearts, into our churches, institutions, and see how biased we are and how we ourselves are part of the problem if we do not want to change, if we do not want to be transformed and really live the love that is the basis of everything. So I will not speak more about what is in the document, but I will speak about what came next after the document. As I said, the document was in 2009. Immediately afterwards, we had people from all over the world who started not only to read it. Ryan, I'm going to ask you to put the pictures of some of the documents that we saw in the US, in the Netherlands, and elsewhere. Can you do that? Okay, this came out from the Netherlands. And the Netherlands, believe it or not, who have a very close link with Israel, where the very first 2 weeks after the document was launched to call for somebody from the Kairos group, Father Jamal Khader, to go and talk about it. And so this is one of the documents that came from the Netherlands. The US also responded. Can we see the one from the US, Ryan? Okay. The US have got an excellent response to the Kairos Palestine document. This is only in 2012. It's not 2020. I mean, this is really right at the beginning, okay? And so I will not mention all the others because, of course, South Africans with all their constituencies responded and responded so well. And we have had as Kairos Palestine 2 big conferences with South Africans, one in 2010, but another one in 2015, because it was their 30 years of remembering their own document. So this is what was formed. But you'll say, what did you do locally? Well, locally, what we did was talk in churches, have the churches also work with us in the universities, and actually we spread from schools in the West Bank. I hate the word West Bank because it's the West Bank of the Jordan, but in the south, Bethlehem, Beit Sahur, Beit Jala, in the north, in our villages, and even in Israel proper. I remember that we even went up to Nazareth and had meetings there about how important it was. Some people said the language of the document, the first one came in Arabic, of course, because we were talking to our own people. But the first document came out both in Arabic and in English. Then we had a German and French, then we had a Spanish and Italian. And so it was spread all over. And even in Gaza, we have people in Gaza who have supported it. This document has gone up to the Vatican. It has gone up to the Palestinian Authority. And we have tried as much as possible to focus. Okay, I've got a question that I'll answer later. And it has gone and spread everywhere. So what will we do with it? Okay, what has been done with it? Some people were critical. And as I said, some people said the language is not simple enough for young people. You have to write it in a different form, okay? Well, I think young people are even more intelligent than the group we are here and the older group, and they can understand things in a better way. But we had to reach out to youth through the scouts, through their summer camps, and so on. And so it has started to spread as much as possible. Some of the documents, some of the publications of Kairos Palestine were and still are yearly Easter alerts and Kairos alerts. I hope that you have all seen the 2021 Kairos alert, Christmas alert, which is really excellent. So this is the history. This is how it started spreading. This is how we got, after the conference we did in 2011, which was called the Bethlehem Call. And we had over 20 countries that were present. And they picked up the whole idea of global Kairos for justice. And today what is happening in the world is joint. Sometimes Kairos and Sabil, like in the Netherlands and elsewhere. Sometimes it is Kairos Palestine and global Kairos, including the South. And so you see that it is a movement that is not only particular to Palestinians. Yes, people look at the injustice that is ongoing in Palestine, definitely. But to see also that there is injustice in each one of your countries, and you really have to stand for it, to ask for it, to fight for it. We all know that, and we all speak about international law. Yes, international law exists, but like it was said at the United Nations 2 days ago, how do we implement it? We keep saying we want to support the Palestinians, we want them to have their own land back, we want the refugees to return and so on. But if we do not do any actions about that, how are we going to have peace in this country? And this country could be shared. because this is where we had 3 monotheistic religions. They didn't come out by accident, I assure you. I mean, there was a plan behind that. There was a plan to show that people should be able to live together, to speak with love, even when there is injustice, and to openly say, you have wronged me, and I have wronged you. And so let us take a new transformative position of love to be able to do that. And that is what the logic of love is all about. The logic of love is at the basis of the Kairos document, but the logic of love is at the basis of your faith as Christians and what it tells the world about if we love each other as human beings, not as groups that are against each other, then we can try to save humanity as much as possible as we can. So I think I don't want to speak much more. I can do, but I don't want to speak much more, okay? But I will say that since we have people from South Africa, I think they feel exactly like we do. I know that we have lots of Brits and Scots with us, but I bear no grudge against any of you. I'm an Armenian, and my family was ill-treated badly in a genocide by the Turks. But I don't bear grudge against the Turks, and I don't bear grudge against the Brits and the Scots, who really brought about our own tragedy in our country. So please try to live your faith. I learned so much from South Africa. I learned so much from others, okay? So, strong person's voice, okay. Don't say anything, I just want to conclude and give you the recommendations. Why do I believe Kairos Palestine has lasted so long? And it will last long? Because documents will have a long-term impact only if they become a way of life. Only if they become a way of life. If they address all humanity and not only one group of people, which is what Kairos Palestine has done. It has to be theologically sound. No document can be biased theologically. We cannot stand with the oppressor because we think this is what our faith is telling us. Our faith does not stand with the oppressor. You just have to go to Luke 4 and read the declaration in Nazareth and what Jesus told us who we should be standing with and for. And of course, it needs to be built on the logic of love, okay? As we commemorate today or yesterday, the solidarity with the Palestinians, is it not time to stop talking and start acting? In the Christmas alert 2021 that Ryan put on the chat, Emeritus Patriarch Michel Sabah concludes, let us all be peacemakers, capable of loving each other, so the tragedy of this land will end, first from within our hearts, because God created all of us in his image. You can read it at the end. God created all of us in his image. And I want you to leave with this message of a document cannot be a document if it is not a way of life. To continue what has happened after that, we have formed in Palestine, groups have joined each other. And we had a coalition, which was the National Coalition of Christian organizations that has been talking to their own churches, okay? You can ask me questions later about how much work we have done with the churches and so on. But they sent out in 2017 a letter to the World Council of Churches saying, enough is enough. We no more need diplomacy, we need action. And now there is a new group that has been formed, and Kairos Palestine is really depending on its new document of 2020, which is the cry for hope. And that cry for hope has been signed by 21,937 people in the world, which means that it is credible. So please join us. Join us if you care about the people of this land, both the Palestinians and the Israelis. If you stand for justice for both, and let us together try to bring change despite the pandemic, despite the economic situation, despite all the ugliness of the world, for human beings to be able to live with dignity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nora. We're now going to introduce our action for the day, and we'll give everyone a few minutes to get started on it before we move into the question and answer. And if you've still got a question percolating, please put that in the chat. So this time we're taking now allows our guests to have a short break before answering your questions, and also allows you to take a break as well. As you can see on the slide, we'd like to share the Kairos Palestine document with our local churches and our places of worship, and encourage them to preach on Palestine. Nora, before we give you a moment to take a break, do you have any thoughts on our Kumi action this week? Or do you have any other ideas of how activists around the world can spread the message of Kairos Palestine and the Kairos Palestine document?
Maybe I'll say afterwards when we're asking the questions, okay?
Sure.
Because I think it is clear. It is clear that we have to act. It is clear that we cannot keep the information we have only for ourselves, no matter where we are, in what small community or what large community. But you all know that the churches cannot always speak to the governments, and the churches do not have the clout that they had years ago. So we have to try and implement international law as much as possible and put pressure on the governments.
Thank you so much. We'll now get to work. The instructions are on the screen. Note that Zoom doesn't allow on-screen links, so all the links are shared in the chat. So we'll give you about 5 minutes for this, so you can figure out how to spread the Kairos document, or you can take a moment to read it yourself. Put your questions in the chat, or take a moment to stretch and get a drink of water. So about 5 minutes. Okay, so let's regroup. Lacking the music to keep us entertained, we'll just plunge right in with the question and answer. There's probably still some room for those of you who may be formulating a question. Please write that in the chat. So the first question came from Ron from the Bristol Kairos community, and he wrote, despite the moral and ethical probity framed in the Christian principles of the call for action, neither the Church of England nor the Roman Catholic Church in England have responded favorably. Do you have any suggestions, Nora, for how to address this situation?
Okay, thank you for the question, because we have worked, I did not say that when I was working with Kairos, I was really in charge of the global Kairos group, much more than the local. I was doing both. And so part of the work with Rifat was connecting with the churches. And it is true that some of the churches have not responded. And we all know, unfortunately, how much pressure there is on the churches from governments, but also from Israel. I mean, our own local churches suffer from the pressure of Israel. And sometimes their own permits are denied, and they have to try to woo them all the time. But my response to the churches is always, as I have done so many times when I was traveling in Europe, who are you serving, Caesar or God? Because once in the Netherlands, when we were looking at the issue of equating Zionism with racism, one of the pastors told me, but Nora, I get so much money from the Jewish community. Do you want me to lose it? And my answer to him then was, if you are a church, you do what God has asked you to do. Are you doing the will of God, or are you serving Caesar? So I will say the same to the churches. But I know that the Anglican Church in England, because I have met with so many of them, even if they don't come out and say it openly. And I know that Mark is working on anti-Semitism at the moment, and so he knows how sensitive the whole issue is. We are afraid of being labeled anti-Semitic if we dare speak the truth about what is happening. Please, please, we're not asking you to go to the cross, but at least be as brave as your Savior and tell the truth. This is what I say to the churches.
Thank you, Nora. Another question, someone asked, is there an Israeli on the horizon to be an FW de Klerk? So for those who don't know, he was a South African politician who recognized the harm of apartheid and worked to dismantle it. So Nora, have you seen an Israeli who maybe will be an advocate?
Well, there are several, but they are not in the government. I mean, I can start naming them even, okay? You've got people who are journalists. I mean, you've got somebody like Gideon Levy who will speak any day, okay? You have people like Miko Pellet, whose family has suffered directly from suicide bombing. His niece was killed, who is there. You've got groups like the bereaved family circles or combatants for peace who are working there, okay? And okay, so many others that I could name, but it would take all the time. But they are not in government. You don't have people in government today. You never had, okay, I'll be very honest. We cannot say that since the state of Israel was established, there was never, ever an intention of seeing Palestinians in a Palestine of their own, and not even sharing Palestine equally. It has always been the oppressor and the oppressed. Even now, when we speak about one state, This is very far-fetched, believe me. Among the people, yes, you will find people with whom you can converse, you can talk, you can plan. Jeff Halper, of course, thank you. Jeff Halper is one of them, of course, and others like him, okay? But they do not have enough power. I'll tell you something else about Israel that I know for sure, okay? From people who are working for peace, but whose children left the country because they cannot live in a country which is so undemocratic, that claims to be democratic and wants a state only for Jews alone. So this is the situation, unfortunately.
Thank you.
No, before I go on, having said what I said, it's not that the Kairos Palestine document or we as Palestinians criticize only what Israel does. We criticize Israel as an oppressive state, but we have enough statements that condemn what is happening also in the Palestinian state. So we really are working for justice, and we are not siding with one group of people against the other.
Thank you. Someone asked, have any non-theistic or humanist religions signed on to the Kairos document?
Since I left Kairos in 2016, I don't know for sure. I don't want to answer yes or no without checking with Kairos Palestine about that. But I know we have had responses from Japan, from Singapore, from Thailand, from other places. And they're not, I mean, they may be totally secular, but they are working for humanity. And you don't have to be religiously connected with a church or a mosque or a synagogue to really know what the will of God is towards your brother or sister.
Thank you. You referred to the British and the Scottish, and that you don't hold a grudge against them for what they've done. And so someone wondered if you could explain what you're referring to there. Are you referring to Armenia or Palestine, and what was done to your country?
Okay, when I was speaking about the Brits and the Scots, okay, I'm not going to ask you to forgive me because those are facts. And you all know that the whole idea of Christian Zionism started in your countries, okay? And again, I'll be very honest. It was not because of your love for the Jews that you convinced them to return to the land which was given to them according to some, but because you wanted to get rid of them. So it was not out of love, unfortunately, okay? And then you all know that the Balfour Declaration came from your country. You all know that the first bishops that came from the UK or from Scotland were also supporting the Jews blindly, okay? We Palestinians have nothing against the Jews as a people. My fight is with the oppressive systematic oppression of Israel. And the Israel of today, and correct me because I can see so many people who are more knowledgeable than I am, is not the Israel that you read of in the Bible. And then again, when you read the Bible, it is the word of God, but historically there are facts that are not correct. So you really have to be honest with yourself. And when I spoke about transformation and change, have the courage really to look at that and say, what can we do? What is my Savior telling me today? Not 2,000 years ago, what can I do so that that message of love and salvation for everybody can be applied to me and Moshe and Muhammad and Maryam and everybody else. This is the message that we want.
Thank you, Nora. A number of comments in the chat have called you a prophetic voice, and we see your gracious spirit. And so someone asked, how have you maintained your hope over all these years?
Thank you. One, I'm from the land of the Holy One. Two, I have lived the history of Palestine through Palestine because I was born in 47 in Palestine. I became a refugee and could come back and live in Jerusalem, Jordan. And after 1967, I'm a permanent resident of occupied Jerusalem. So this is my history. But where does my faith come from? My Armenian background. I am the daughter of survivors of the genocide who came to Jerusalem in 1916 by miracle. We have our book that is called Towards Golgotha. You can look it up on Amazon. But this faith that brought my grandparents to the land of the Holy One, they're never begrudging or hating others, is what was my inheritance with which I could work in my community, which also tells me that God does not forget anybody. And God is merciful. And so it is upon this that I build every day, knowing that I have to wake up. And if I wake up and I'm alive and my home is not demolished, my children are not in prison, because I have lost lots of my students all throughout the years because of the occupation, then there is still hope. And God is good. We cannot deny that.
Thank you so much, Nora. We will draw this to a close now as we're coming to the end of the hour. Thank you so much, Nora, for not only information, but also for your example, as you have spoken about love, and we have seen it coming from you. Thank you.
Can I just
Thank you
add
too.
one more?
Certainly.
Karen, just let me say that next week, Kairos Palestine is having its 11th conference on the 10th, because it was launched on Human Rights Day. And this year, the title is Church and Resistance. Church with a capital C, not the denominations, but how does the church resist? And I'm sure they're going to speak about the logic of love also as part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you, Nora, for dedicating your time and for sharing with us.
You're most welcome.
A link to a video of this gathering, along with all the links shared today, will be available on the Kumi Now website and on YouTube in a day or so, and it will be shared in the next newsletter. So if you didn't catch something here today, you'll have another opportunity to follow these links and learn more. You can subscribe to Kumi Now on YouTube, and you can subscribe to the newsletter to make sure you receive all of these. We would greatly appreciate if you shared this amazing, important session with your friends and colleagues, as well as information about future sessions. Next week, we will focus on human rights. If you would like to be reminded of the online gatherings an hour before they begin, you can register for the email reminders at kuminow.com/online and use the form found at the bottom of the page there. So thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you back here in a week's time, and maybe some of you will also be at the upcoming Kairos gathering that Nora just spoke of. So thank you again. Good night, good afternoon, or good morning.